PMS jokes are not funny. Period.
Grab a chair, I swear, this is down. It's my podcast. This guy's insane. Rock your brain. It's just a song. A Steve here vault.
Schmack 'em a gob. It's time for another Vieira Vault, and I have a kind of a special guest. If you want to talk about, like, you know, special ed, Mark Cicchini, man. Hey, Mark, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing absolutely wonderful. You know, let's just face it, you could have had Izzy. So,
God. Yeah, I kind of like numbers, you know. Yeah, and we're going to have fun because you and I are very close at age. I think I was born months before you in February. What month in 65 were you born?
Matter of fact, I'm celebrating the double nickel next month.
Next month is going to be, all right, cool, man. Double nickel, yeah, 55. We made it, dude.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and that's one of the great things, you know, about meeting people like you. You know, like-minded. We love our rock and roll. We put everything into, you know, everything we do, we give it our all. And, you know, we're pretty happy guys for the most part.
Yeah, and the love for rock and roll, it's just 100% passion. Like yourself, I'm in a band. And I'm sure you are in the band for the same reason. It's not for fame. It's not for money. It's for the love of it. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm sure you noticed somewhere along the line, because matter of fact, and I'm going to plug it in a little bit, my band's new album is going to be available pre-sale on, you know, wherever you pre-sale your music, you know, Apple and iTunes and anywhere that you can buy music. May 8th. Our new records you can buy it, pre-buy it or whatever, and you're going to get 2 songs. And then on my birthday, May 29th, is the release date, which was just pure dumb luck. So the record will be released then, and it'll also be, you know, on Spotify and any streaming things that you can possibly think of. So, you know, pretty excited about that. But getting back to that, you're absolutely right. At 55 years old, see, when I was a kid growing up, I've been playing drums for about 45 years. I thought at the time that I was playing in a band because I love chicks and you know, and it's cool and all that other stuff. And then by the time when you're making your umpteenth album, when you're in your mid-50s, you realize somewhere along the lines, you know what? I just love doing this.
Yeah.
I write songs because I like to write songs. I record because I like to record. And if I don't do it, it feels like I'm missing an arm. So somewhere along the line, you're absolutely right. It's passion. When you're a kid, you think you do it for a certain reason, and then in the end, you realize that, no, you loved it all along. It was never about the girls. It was never about anything else other than this is something I love to do. Yeah,
same here, man. And, you know, it has in my, you know, and I'm sure for you as well, it's paid off where you can keep rolling and it can take care of pressing the records and pressing T-shirts and so on. But there's not a lot of money. Like, you know, you can't make a living out of it in this situation, but it doesn't matter, man. What matters is like to hear yourself, to hear what you created from scratch. It's such a great, awesome feeling. And when other people like it, it's like, you know, icing on the cake. But in reality, if nobody liked what I did, if I like it, it's a success. And that's how you got to look at things. Because once you start thinking of, I should do this because of, you know, it'll appeal to this group of people, that's when you start to suck.
Well, I will tell you, you know, let's go to my favorite band in the world, the hottest band in the world. We know who that is. Gene, Paul, Tommy, and Eric.
What?
Look, listen to me. What you just said is exactly why I segued into this. Sonic Boom, when that came out, I was so happy. And I'll tell you why I was so happy when that came out. Because there was no attempt to follow a trend for the first time since Creatures of the Night, really. Because that was the first Kiss record that came out that didn't have a bit, not even a fucking hair of, okay, what's popular now? Let's try writing a song that way because maybe it'll get played on the radio. That's why I love that record. That's why I love Monster as well.
Well, I was going to bring...
Finally,
yeah, go ahead.
No, they finally went, you know what? We're just going to fucking bring 10 songs to the party that we like, that we wrote, where the bass player actually plays bass and the lead guitar player actually plays lead guitar on it. And you can tell. And I will say this to anybody who's listening to this. If you don't like Sonic Boom and Monster, it's because you didn't listen to it. I've met so many fans when especially like on a cruise or at a Kiss show, if you get some of those fans who start, poo-pooing it, because I don't do this stuff on the internet, there's just too many idiots. But when you're face-to-face with another fan, and I've even done it on our show, I've had a guest who will remain nameless. Don't get me wrong, he's a good guest, nice guy. But, he was kind of saying, Sonic Boom. I'm like, well, and I just started naming some song titles. I'm like, what do you think of that? Well, I really don't know the material. Well, then how come it sucked? How do you know it sucked? Maybe it does, but you didn't listen to it. So how can you tell me it's fucking terrible?
Well, in my opinion, I do agree with you where they are not following trends and they're doing the, it kind of sounds like 70s Kiss. I admit it. Songs just don't connect with me, but I love Monster. And Monster is different. You got to admit, it's, I don't know, there's a different vibe to Monster. And believe me, you know where I stand with current Kiss, and you can imagine the flack I get for saying I like Monster. But here's the thing. What am I going to say? I don't like Monster when I actually do? That'll make me a poser. You know what I'm saying?
Well, put it this way. You listen to a song like Back to the Stone Age on that.
Love it.
That is obviously Gene and Paul trying to fucking capture an MC5 vibe.
Yeah.
Let's kick out the jams. Down, 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 down. How can you go wrong with that?
Well,
you know what I mean?
Well,
that's what I'm talking about. That music, both records are very much brother-sister records, meaning they're pretty interchangeable. Both of those records are, as Jimmy Walker would say, is dynamite. I love those records. And if you're honest with yourself, like you just said, put it this way, I always use this as the metrics. Okay, that's a big word. Actually, it's kind of a small word, and I'm not going to go into the big Gene Simmons.
The G word.
So, yeah, exactly. So, here's my metrics for Kiss. Could most of the songs from Sonic Boom and Monster, could they have fit on the first 6.5, because you got to include side 4 of Kiss Alive 2, which is what people consider the glory years. Could they have fit on those records? And the answer is yes. Don't believe me? Hell or Hallelujah could have been on Love Gun, because it's basically a rewrite of I Stole Your Love anyway.
I love that song.
All those songs. What's that?
I love that song.
So do I, but you hear you understand what I'm saying. There is a thin line between that song and Love Gun. There's a thin line, on like Stand that could have been on Destroyer. It's got that sing-along chorus. It's you know what I mean? It's got the basic 1, 2, 3, 4 drum beat. You can't say that about My Way off of Crazy Nights. That wouldn't have fit anywhere on the first 6.5 albums. Look, I love the song, and I absolutely love King of the Mountain, but that wouldn't have been on the first 6.5 records.
Right.
But that's my point. The whole 80s stuff doesn't sound like the band I fell in love with. Are there parts of it that I like? Yes. I always stayed a fan. And while I talk about this as a Kiss fan, too, and here's where you and I disagree on something, because I know I don't dislike the Tony Martin era of Black Sabbath, because Black Sabbath is every bit as important to me as Kiss is. I mean, I love them just as much, and I'm a geeky fan about, I can recite the entire Sabbath catalog, and I'm a total Sabbath geek, and I've seen them, literally dozens and dozens and dozens But I, as Pee Wee would say, I like Dottie. I like the Tony Martin era. I like certain sections of it better than others, but I still to this day haven't warmed up to it. And I'm kind of the same thing about Kiss from Animalize through On the Shade. It's okay. It's not horrible, but I still to this day, has its moments, I guess. But
yeah, I'm a huge fan of that stuff. But like Kiss, Black Sabbath totally changed after the 70s. I mean, Heaven and Hell is a masterpiece. It's perfection, but it doesn't sound like Black Sabbath. That's Bill Ward on drums on Heaven and Hell. That doesn't sound like Bill Ward to me. It's too in the pocket. You know what I mean? Bill Ward is a little more sporadic.
Well, you do know that, a lot of the bass parts originally were done by, was it Greg Gruber?
Yeah, it was. Yes, it was Greg Gruber. He came up with Heaven and Hell, the dun 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 dun.
Yeah, I was just talking to the bass player in my band the other day about it because he didn't know that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, dun 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 dun. Does that sound like anything fucking Geezer would play? And he's like, no. So I showed him the article that Gruber talks about, coming up with a lot of that stuff. And I believe Nichols had a hand in that.
I was about to say, Jeff Nichols, I could be wrong, but, I've read a lot of Sabbath books, and I'm pretty sure in the book Doom Let Loose, even Jeff...
Book. That was one of Martin's best.
Yeah, I love that book. It's out of print, unfortunately, but it's like it's the Sabbath Bible to me.
I still have mine.
Yeah, I believe it's in that book. It's either in that book or the other Martin book.
Well, he's got a couple.
Black Sabbath Facts.
The FAQ book, the Sabbath, but he also just did one called Sabotage, which is all the 70s, and then there's can't remember the other one that's all post Ozzy material. I have that one too. Matter of fact, I've got anybody listening to this show right now, do yourself a favor, either pause us right now, which I wouldn't recommend because let's face it, Ralph and I are on a tear. But if you want to afterwards, go to martinpopoff.com and tell him that we sent you. That guy's writing, and it's not just Sabbath. I mean, just metal in general. You want to build up a great library and read some incredible stuff and find out stuff you don't even know some of the stuff that you think you know. He'll break it down for you. This guy is so well researched. But Martin Popoff's books, especially about Black Sabbath, are phenomenal.
Yeah, and like I was saying, like Jeff Nichols had a lot to do, even with the music. So I guess it would include the bass playing. Maybe some of that stuff he told Craig, all right, play it like this. The only thing that Geezer was 100% on was Neon Nights. Nights.
He was back in the fold by then.
Yeah, Neon. Because what happened was Geezer left the band, and then he heard some of the Heaven and Hell stuff and said, "Hey, I'll come back."
Yep.
But it's phenomenal. But I do hear a lot of the Dio era in the Martin era. I hear it. I hear a lot of the vibe musically. And come on, let's face it, it's Tony Iommi's riffs. I mean, the guy is like endless with the riffs and like look. How you were glowing about Sonic Boom now, it made me say, all right, you just talked about the song Stand. Let me give it another chance. When I did a review for the Asylum album, I hated Secretly Cruel. I thought that song sucked. Now it's my favorite song off the album, so you never know. I might warm up to Sonic Boom. Fortunately, a really cool guy out there sent me the vinyl. I mean, you can't get that. I'm sure you have it, right?
Of course I do, because I'm totally geeky on that.
But you got it when it first came out at a good price.
Yeah. I look, I think you know this story. Matter of fact, this is kind of a nice little, just put it this way, Ralph, doing this stuff that we do, meaning the podcast, it's no different than why we're in a band. Look, we just like to, when we're not making music, we like to talk about music.
Yeah.
Just as a fan of music, think about it, dude. Obviously, Ralph, I was fortunate enough to see, like Randy Rhoads with Ozzy and other shows that you and I have just talked about in private. Could you imagine if we had all those?
Oh, my God. I would have loved to have that Sunrise show with Randy, the one I saw. I would have loved, with High and Dry, Def Leppard. That would have been amazing.
Oh, yeah, well, that's exactly what I'm talking about. I'm like, if you go back on all the shows that we've seen, to have an actual soundboard copy, that would literally be invaluable. Oh my God, I don't know what I'd give, but it'd be a lot to have copies of every single show that I've ever been to, and it's literally thousands. And I would. Oh, there's so many shows I'd like to revisit. You know, the very first time I saw Van Halen was on Women and Children First.
Same here, yeah, me too.
And I remember being, well, you know, I think a lot of this was you and I, because of our age. You know,
yeah.
We were right at that age where we could start going to concerts and stuff, and you know, just seeing all those special memories. You know, I saw Cooper on the Special Forces tour with the Joe Perry Project opening.
Wow.
I'm like, yeah, that's, again, you know, I think back, I remember seeing Maiden on the Number of the Beast tour opening for Judas Priest on the Screaming for Vengeance tour, you know?
Yeah.
And just going back in time, and I'm like, those were such magical shows, you know? And, God, I'd love to revisit some of those, but I have them in my memory.
We got boned in Florida. Screaming for Vengeance tour, we had Uriah Heep. And I don't know about you, but that's a band I could never...
Well,
like,
that was a good era. Wasn't it the Abominon?
It was the Abominon.
Right?
I don't know. I don't know why. I own that album because the album cover is so cool. I bought
really
it.
Good.
Oh, man. I know a guy that claims it's the greatest album ever made. I don't get it. I don't know. It's a little too AOR. And I have Magician's Birthday. I've tried with Uriah Heep. Now, I saw Uriah Heep not too long ago open for Priest again, and they were awesome. And I'm like, man, I need to get into, you know, Uriah Heep because live they're really good. And I'll tell you a weird parallel about that show with Judas Priest, Mark. I saw Randy Rhoads, you know, with Ozzy at the Sunrise Musical Theater. Then I saw Priest with Uriah Heep, which had Bob Daisley and Lee Kerslake at the time.
That's correct.
So I saw Rudy Sarzo and Tommy Aldridge, but I actually saw the Blizzard of Oz lineup at different shows on the same stage, which was an odd parallel, you know. But yeah, I like to go back in time though, Mark. What was it that triggered your fandom for hard rock music?
Well, this is actually pretty easy to explain. I don't know where. Well, you were. Where did you spend your? You said you're from New York originally. Were you in New York when you were like between say 5 and 10?
Yeah, I left at 9.
Okay, so I don't know what things were like on the East Coast here, and I've talked to a lot of my friends in the Midwest here, especially because I'm in Detroit. I know cities like Cleveland and Toledo and Chicago. Roller skating was really huge. And I was fortunate. Matter of fact, next to music, my other passion is hockey. Do I still play in a band? Yes. Guess what? I also still play on a hockey team. I play competitive hockey with refs and standings and leagues and penalties and all that, you know, just like you see on TV. I still play hockey too because I love that just as much as I love music. So you can only imagine how geeky I am about hockey. But anyways, as a chubby little kid, especially right when you're like 10 years old, I would have been 1975. I would have been 10. Well, leading up to that is right when you start going, hey, girls are pretty cool, you know. And being that I started ice skating when I was 4, by the time I was 6, 7, I could really get around fine on rollerblades. Or we didn't have rollerblades, just roller skating. So I was always one of the better kids roller skating. And the one thing that went along great girls. And I noticed the girls seemed to like, the catchier, rock songs at the time. And when I was a kid, I didn't know the term heavy metal or anything like that. But if you're familiar with the 1974 BTO album, Not Fragile, which is one of my favorite records of all time.
I own it, yeah, I do have it. And I'm a late comer on that one. I just got that like 2 years ago.
Yeah, I bought that. That was the first record I ever owned. This is pre-Kiss. My older brother had it, and I listened to that thing front to back. Now that has like Ain't Seen Nothing Yet on it.
Taking care of business, right?
Yeah, and the title track itself is the one that really drew me to that. The da 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 da. That, but also like the sweet.
Oh yeah.
Little Philly. And my point is that when I was a kid, I could roller skate really well. I loved roller skating to these fast, for lack of a better word, hard rock pop tunes. Alice Cooper, School's Out. And, that was. I didn't know that it was called hard rock or anything. Because in 1974 I was 9, but I know what I liked. And it's funny. Did you ever see the movie The Light of Day with Joan Jett?
Yeah, I barely remember it. With Michael J. Fox and Joan Jett, yeah.
Yes, correct. Yeah, well, there's a part in that movie that I remember literally screaming out, "Yes, that's it." Because I remember Joan Jett in the movie said something along the lines where, "I need the jump, 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 jump." And that's how I felt as a kid. I didn't know what this music was called, but it went jump, 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 jump. You know what I mean? It was the loud guitars that drew me to it, and I loved skating to it, and I loved just how it made me feel. So fast forward now to the fall of 1974. Now, other than also at the time when I was a kid, although I still like it, I was really into Universal monsters, meaning I liked Frankenstein and Dracula, and I was a big fan of, what was the makeup guy who did all the, and I was really into Lon Chaney, reading about him. Remember we used to be able to get those Scholastic books, and they talk about, the old horror movies and stuff?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So anyways, I was really into all that, and I remember my older brother brought home Hotter Than Hell. And I'm like, because keep in mind, Kiss was big news in Detroit early on. Don't ask me how or why. They just were. You knew who they were. So I remember seeing pictures of them, and my older brother had the record, and I remember, this to me is just the best way to describe it. I remember looking at the album cover and thinking to myself, what this sounds like, that's what it should look like, if you know what I mean. It made sense to me. That these scary guys should sound like how Parasite sound. You know what I mean? If they were singing about daffodils and acoustic guitars and, Crosby, Stills, and Nash, it wouldn't have worked. But, the opening chords of Got to Choose made sense to me. That's what this looks like it should sound, and the sound looks like it should, that whole sort of thing, it all tied together. And I just remember too, he had, because my older brother is the one who got me into Kiss. Again, he's a few years older than me, and that was cool in the high schools or in the junior highs and stuff, so.
What was Kiss your gateway though?
Well, here's the thing. In Michigan, again, I live in the Detroit area. Music's a big deal here, and I've talked to other people, especially friends who, maybe have lived down south, or again, much like you, Ralph, we talk to a lot of music fans.
Right.
The only way to say it, growing up here, is if you weren't into rock and roll, you just weren't paying attention. I mean, it was coming at you. Everything from the Motown sound on down. I mean, it was just fucking beat you over the head with it. And I was just a willing victim. I loved I couldn't get enough. It was music Warning to Not. I loved it. And I again, having an older brother and an older sister really helped because, they were at the target age. Keep in mind, when they were like 12 and 13, where, AM radio is such a big deal. I was, 8 and 9, and what do you do when you're that age? You follow your older brother or sister around, and, that, it was, again, as I was growing up, it was a big deal. And look, Bob Seger was huge here before he was, national news, and Kiss was huge here, and we had. Keep in mind, at one time, Detroit had 4 FM hard rock or rock stations that played, hard rock music. So it was hard not to be inundated by it, and I took to it, man. But as a gateway for Kiss, yeah, it would have to be. But at the same time, there was so much else going around. I mean, Ted Nugent was huge here. Aerosmith was huge here. Another band that I think is criminally overlooked, and it's not a heavy metal or hard rock band, but as a normal rock band, there's few bands that can touch Jay Giles live. Now, if all you know about Jay Giles is Centerfold, then you don't know anything about Jay Giles. Go listen to the Blow Your Face Out record. I mean, that's the shit, man. And that's the stuff that I was raised on.
See, that I don't know. I don't know none of that. I know Love Stinks and Come Back and Centerfold. That's all, and Free Thing.
Do me a favor. As soon as we're off this, go get a live album. Just go to Spotify. I don't know if you have Spotify, or even you can go to YouTube.
No, it's on YouTube, I'm sure.
Go listen to Full House.
Okay.
That is the shit, man. The first songs, First I Look at the Purse. Oh my God, that is just if you want to just talk about old school rock and roll, get you off your feet, or get you on your feet out of your seat, that stuff, and then the hard, and this is what I'm talking about. Because a lot of hard rock bands they do like a lot of the Jimmy Page stuff with playing rocking out the blues. The version of Serves You Right to Suffer on Full House will fucking make the hair on your arm stand up. That stuff is just so fucking incredible. And, I cannot, if you like rock music, man, and like I just said, though, too, and let's face it, a lot of this stuff is regional,
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, Jay Giles did some reunion shows. They did them in Detroit, and they did them in Boston, where they're from. I mean, and I'm not exaggerating here. And another example of this is something that you had on your Facebook, I think, yesterday. You were playing the first Rockets album. Yeah. Which is phenomenal. I want everyone out here in Dr. Fuckland know that if you've ever heard of Pine Knob, which is, like a 12 to 14,000 seat amphitheater here in Detroit, no bullshit. In the heyday, in the late 70s, early 80s, Jay Giles would play for a week there. You heard me right, for a week there. The Rockets could play for a week there.
Unbelievable.
They're selling that place out that's what it was like here. That's I'm trying to let people know. This town, man, rock and roll was huge.
That's your advantage, though, Mark, because I moved to trendy South Florida where it was all about disco, and I couldn't relate, because I didn't get into, like, music like hardcore till I got double platinum. Because before that, all I liked was movies. All I did was go to movies, and it wasn't until I did buy a couple 45s. I bought Sweet Little Willie. I bought Benny and the Jets. I bought a couple, little radio hits back then. But it wasn't until I heard double platinum. Now, the first rock album I bought was Kansas Left Overture, thanks to the movie Heroes with Henry Winkler and Sally Fields. Because I was so into movies that's how the movie ended with that song. And I was like, man, that song's good. And then I bought that album. And, and then I bought a couple ELO, but I still wasn't hooked. It wasn't until I heard I Want You My friend played me I Want You. I went out to the store. I didn't know it was on Rock and Roll Over. I bought double platinum because it was on there. And it was because of that album. It just opened the floodgates where I had to discover. That's when I started getting into Alice Cooper and Ted Nugent and Aerosmith. I mean, all that stuff. But it was already 78, 79. My very first Aerosmith album was Night in the Ruts when it was brand new. You know, and I'm a late bloomer, but boy, did I have a lot of catching up to do. Since you were in Detroit, the Motor City, and it was like, you know, I mean, there's something about, I guess it's because of the environment, the building of cars, the hardworking people. You guys had
it's very much like what Sabbath says about Birmingham, England.
Exactly.
It's no different than what Rob Halford says, you know, about Birmingham, because Detroit and Birmingham, they just happen to be in different locations. The rest of it's pretty much the same, you know. It was a big, loud, fucking place to be there. Matter of fact, I just watched the Stooges documentary not too long ago, the Gimme Danger. And, you know, Iggy's from where, I mean, look, you know, I mentioned earlier that, you know, one of the things that I loved about Kiss's Monster is there's one tune on there where they're certainly copying the vibe. Matter of fact, Eric Singer, I said that to him. He's like, you're exactly right. That's exactly what Gene, when we were working on the song, he's like, think, you know, kick out the jams. That it's unapologetically ripped off.
Right.
They were going for that vibe. Well, that's kind of, if you think about it, and even Lemmy, if you're a fan of Motorhead, which I know you are.
Oh, huge fan.
But, you know, Lemmy talked about the MC5 being like, that's the real deal. You know, keep in mind, in the late 60s, MC5 were basically inventing heavy metal and punk all at the same time. You know, that song, Kick Out the Jams, live, which was the first release of it live, that really says it all. I mean, that is metal and it's punk, and if you like Motorhead, you can't help but go, hey, that's where Lemmy learned that sort of thing. And even, you know, when you read Joe Perry from Aerosmith's book, he's like, you know what? Yeah, the Beatles were what Steven was into. He goes, but I like the MC5. That's the vibe that I went for. And that's what he said. They combined the, you know, that rough and ready with the sweet and pretty, and they, you know, next thing you know, they got lots of radio hits. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Detroit, and again, you know, Chicago and Toledo and Cleveland, and there was something about the Midwest. You know, it just. Well, I will tell you one thing about Detroit. You know, we were obviously the first city on wheels, and you know, we were the first big suburb place where like you drove your car to go places, and you know that was the big. So going to concerts was a big deal. A huge deal, actually. That's what you did. You know, you went to concerts. And again, like I said, at one point for quite a few years, we had four rock stations that you could hear Kiss on and hear Black Sabbath and hear Led Zeppelin. And you know what I mean? It was a great place to grow up if you loved music. And by saying that, if you loved music, it was, you know, a great place to live, man. And you couldn't help but love the music because you heard it all the time. I don't know if you had a chance on Three Sides of the Coin a couple weeks ago. Ted Nugent was our guest.
I heard it. I heard that episode.
But everything that you hear me talking about, Ted was talking. I mean, it was the same way for him growing up. You know, he didn't grow up terribly far from me. It was just nice hearing the guy kind of reiterate everything that I tell everybody. And it's nice when someone like yourself, Ralph, goes, you know what, I noticed that. Yeah, because like I said, if you grew up in the Detroit area, man, you had every all you had to do was keep your ears open. And you were getting hit with music 24/7, you know, round the clock. It was hard to miss. And, you know, that was one of the reasons that, you know, made me so passionate. But anyways, going back, as you know, we certainly got off track with the gateway to the harder stuff. You know, I just gravitated to it at first, and then I remember again, my older brother. The first time I ever heard AC/DC was "Let There Be Rock," and that was pre A Highway to Hell. That would have been 78.
Yeah, I came a little later. You know, my first one was the live one.
Oh, that was great.
Right before, right? Blood. Yeah, If You Want Blood. Right before that was my first. My friend bought that album. And I'll tell you a funny story. The first time I heard it, I was like, I don't know about this singer, man. He sounds like an alien. And now Bon Scott's one of my favorite singers of all time. You know.
Yeah. Well, you know, too. I mean, keep in mind, you know, what we call heavy metal now. It's funny because just this Brandvold, as a matter of fact, is doing all the marketing for our new record, and one of the questions, you have to put it into a category, and I wanted to put it in rock, and then he was like, well, you should put it in heavy metal, and I'm like, look, man, what passes for metal these days? I don't like a lot of the new. I don't even know, you know. What was called heavy metal when we were, now keeping, for you younger fans, because there's a lot of you out there, in 1979, Aerosmith was under the heavy metal tag.
Mark.
Ed Nugent was the heavy metal tag.
Mark, do you remember the Cream magazine that said, "Is heavy metal dead?" And it had pictures of Boston, Kansas, Styx, Nugent, AC/DC. That was metal. Blue Oyster Cult. Heart was metal. People don't remember. AC/DC was, and you know, man, and what you mentioned, Let There Be Rock, man, you can't get rawer than that fucking shit. You know,
especially at the time, that was about it. You know,
it was so raw, and people don't understand. And people, what really drives me nuts about some people is when they slam Phil Rudd. And I'm like, you know what? You get your and nothing against Mike Portnoy, and I love Neil Peart, but go watch the movie Let There Be Rock, and let's see either of them play Let There Be Rock with that type of veracity that Phil Rudd was doing. Their arm would fall off. You know what I'm saying?
It's not so much that; it's the feel and the time. Just take this from a drummer who's been playing for 45 years. There's a reason that AC/DC sold all those records. It's the same reason that Charlie Watts sold all those records for the Stones. It's the same reason that the Beatles sold all those records with fucking Ringo. What do all three of those guys have in common? Feel like an unnatural, godlike feel for a pop song. And those guys know where to play and where not to play. And if you think it's easy, you don't fucking know a thing about drums.
That's what I say, man. If you think what Phil Rudd does is easy, you're clueless.
You know what? Here's something. I actually, on a road trip back from a Kiss show earlier this year, I pointed out to somebody. Next time, this is a super geeky thing to do. Maybe you might even want to try it. One of my favorite Phil Rudd moments is what he doesn't play. If you're playing air drums, you know, where your hand is hitting the steering wheel on the snare hits, the guitar solo part in the middle of For Those About to Rock, Bill purposely doesn't. He missed it, and it's not an accident. He did it on purpose. Totally changes the feel of the solo right there. That da 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 ba ba ba. And then he purposely misses one, and I'm like, see, and I made my buddy rewind. He's like, oh my god, that is like so epic that it's always fits so well. I never noticed it because we were talking about the same thing, and I was telling him how great Phil Rudd is, and he agrees. He's a drummer as well. I'm like, did you ever notice that where he pulls back, he doesn't hit the snare on that spot? And he's like, oh my god, I've never noticed that, and that I always loved that part of the song. That's probably why. And we must have played it over like a couple of times going, isn't that fucking brilliant? Yeah. And it's that kind of stuff that I get all giddy about, as you can just tell, you know. I love talking music that way, where I love pointing out brilliance, whether, you know, and it doesn't, that's the whole thing. Look, man, I love Neil Peart too. I'm a total Rush geek. By the way, another band that was huge in Detroit, you know, early on. You know, I love that stuff. And for as cool as 2112 is and stuff, So was Let There Be Rock. So was The Girls Got Rhythm. So the dum, 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 that just that bass drum. Dude, that's the shit.
And did you ever notice? Did you ever notice, Mark? Girls Got Rhythm is only one riff the whole time.
You can say the same thing about Problem Child.
Yeah, and it works.
Oh, it doesn't go down the neck a little bit. It's the same riff.
But it doesn't have that repetitious, annoying feel to it. You know what I'm saying? It works, and that's talent, man.
Yeah, they're insane good. And you know what's funny? One of the bands you mentioned earlier was a band that I liked a lot growing up, but now I'm super geeky about them. Is Blue Oyster Cult. I always liked the drummer. I was into him as a kid, but the what's the fuck is the live record, the one from '70s?
On Your Feet.
No, that one's great too. But the one after it,
Some Enchanted Evening.
Some Enchanted Evening, yes. That record, I don't know what it is. Probably in the last 5 years, I've probably played that more than pretty much any record I own. I fucking love that album. I mean, I liked it as a kid, but I love they put that deluxe version out of it a few years ago, and they added like 4 or 5 songs, and I'm like, that's where I sit back and I listen, and I'm like, how did this not get bigger? Although that record is a platinum record. It was, matter of fact, I think that's the biggest record they ever had.
Really? More than Fire of Unknown Origins, huh?
I believe so. I could be wrong. But I think that's their biggest seller. And it's funny, too, because I think, I can't remember the name of the song offhand, but it's on the next record. Because I was always wondered, like, because I like Burnin' For You, but that's like not even the best song on that record, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, no, I agree too. I like Soul Survivor. I like quite a few, but I do like Burnin' For You. It's got a good hook.
Yeah, it's good. I'm trying to think of the song off the next record.
Take Me Away?
Yes! That's even better!
Oh, that song rules. That's one of my favorite Blue Oyster Cult songs.
I know, but that's my whole point. That song's 10 times better than Burnin' For You, and it didn't do dick compared to what Burnin' For You did.
Yep.
That's where I'm like, how did that happen? You know what I mean?
And it does kind of have the same, like, hooky feel, the little guitar thing that Burnin' For You has, but it's like improved. It's like a new and improved Burnin' For You, I think.
Yes, but my point is, yes, they tried to, rewrite another hit, and I don't think that happens a lot, but that happened there. That version's better than Burnin' For You, if you know what I mean. I thought they made a better drink, if you want to say it that way. It was I love that fucking song.
It's so well constructed. That little bridge, I turn myself into the sky. That little bridge is so hooky. It's so good,
Yeah, exactly. It's just so cool. And then again, we do this a lot. Yes, you're exactly right. So you get it because you're just as passionate about this stupid, crazy shit as I am, and you notice those things. You're absolutely right. I love when I think I'm the only one who thinks that way, and then you just go, boom, oh yeah, that one, yeah, I remember it's written just. I'm like, you get it, you pay attention. I like that. Yeah,
it took me, many years after you, but still, I caught up. I caught up with the passion and the music and kind of like, I think we share so much philosophy too because of timeline too. I mean, I think you may have grown up in a better area as far as getting into music, but once I caught up, I think we kind of have the same mentality in a lot of things, I think. I've seen it, I've heard you on Three Sides talk about, I remember you talking about the Sweet. I was like, oh yeah. Not a lot of people talk about the Sweet. Sweet, everybody knows Ballroom Blitz, Fox on the Run, and Love Is Like Oxygen, but man, that band is so much deeper than that.
My God. I tell you what, because a lot of people don't realize, like, everything that's pretty much, in the United States, the Desolation Boulevard, the original Desolation Boulevard release was nothing like the one that we have.
Oh, yeah.
Matter of fact, Fox on the Run is a totally different song. that is a great example of a DJ and the record company listening to one another, going, "Hey, tell you what, let me add this, crazy keyboard part, and let's straighten this part out a little bit, and I think we're going to have a hit." Because that's what they did with Fox on the Run. That was released in Europe as a single, totally different. The vibe is totally different. Again, Ralph, like I said, this is for the younger viewers. They may know the song, but they may not know the history of it. That, they Americanized, for lack of a better word, they Americanized that song, and next thing you know, I mean, holy shit. You want to talk about roller skating and stuff, that summer of 75, I was probably at the DJ desk more for that one than anything else. I still have my 45 of that one. That's and boy, the guitar sound on that stuff, and Let Me Free, Set Me Free, and it just, oh my God.
Set Me Free, No You Don't, Sweet F.A. They have
Sweet F.A. especially.
Cockroach.
You could tell he was a big Blackmore fan. Fuck, he was ripping off Richie's licks verbatim on some of that stuff.
Did you ever hear their B-side called Burning?
Yeah, I got that.
It's such a ripoff of Immigrant Song. I mean, it's the same thing. Dun 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 dun. Ah, they just go ah instead of ah. And
who used to do a lot of that is Crocus. They must have ripped off half a dozen fucking Bad Company.
Long Stick Goes Boom is AC/DC 100%.
Yeah. They do that a lot, but boy, that was another band that I was really into. And again, the first time I heard them was on Detroit radio in 1980, because I think it was the Metal Rendezvous record. And I remember the DJ verbatim. This is one of the things that's made me go, put it this way, this made me go buy the record. The guy, they were playing Heatstroke, and he called them the Swiss Kiss. and I'm like, okay, I got to get this. And I went out and I bought it. And I was, next thing you know, isn't Bedside Radio on that too?
Yes, it is.
That stuff's just so great, There's some brain damage drumming. Freddie Steady. Remember his, God, that's just great stuff, man.
Yeah, I believe it or not, that's how I discovered them. South Florida Radio played Heatstrokes, and I bought it as well. There's a song on there called Tokyo Nights.
Yeah, I love that song.
My God, that's so Scorpions, though. But I love it.
Oh, yeah.
But it's so Scorpions. But I love it. Fire. I mean, that album is unbelievably good. And like an idiot, I kind of lost touch with Crocus till somebody donated for us to review it on our podcast. And I was like, my God, man, I forgot how good these damn songs are. Because I just like, all right, Crocus, Headhunter, man. But man, One Vice at a Time. And
One Vice is probably their best record.
Yeah, I'm a little lean toward Headhunter, but I love One Vice. One Vice is awesome. That's the first time I saw them. I saw them open for Rainbow. And I met them too that day. They were at the merch stand, and I had them sign my Crocus tour book, which I have to this day. My One Vice at a Time tour book.
Yeah, that's a great. Isn't Down the Drain in that record?
Yes.
I love that fucking album. I like Headhunter too. I like the BTO cover, the Stayed Awake All Night.
You see, I learned something every day. I had no idea that was a cover.
Yes,
it's a BTO song, huh?
Yes.
And for all you Kiss geeks, rock and roll, what is it? Rock and Roll Hell.
Yeah.
Is BTO.
Yes. Although all they did on Rock and Roll Hell
was the chorus, right?
That's it was just the chorus. The rest of the song is different. But yeah, I love Stayed Awake All Night. It doesn't Rob Halford even help out on that?
Rob Halford's on what's the name of the damn song? The third
Ready to Burn.
Ready to Burn, yeah. Rob Halford's on that one, yeah. No, they were awesome, man.
Well, they were until for me they suffered the same fate that both Raven and Accepted. As soon as the record companies, infused some cash and changed things around, they lost their soul. Because look, what's that
The Blitz.
And I gave up on them, and then my buddies said when the Heart Attack album came out, when was that? It was probably what?
88, 89, yeah.
Yeah, I love that record. Because they sounded like Crocus again.
Yeah. And the same thing with Raven. Raven XS is they after that album, man, they released none but quality albums. But the thing is, nobody cared no more because of that one album or that one or two albums. Because Change of Address was even worse than the Blitz. I mean, that was really, really bad.
Yeah, it was. Again, it wasn't until Heart Attack came out. I'm like, okay, they're back. Matter of fact, what was the song they redid a song that I think was on Metal Rendezvous.
On Heart Attack?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Don't make me get up because I'm gonna go fucking over to my case section.
Well, I'll go right now on Wikipedia and look it up. Heart Attack. My favorite track on there is Axe Attack. That song rules.
Yeah, great.
All right, let's see.
They redid a song from Metal Rendezvous.
Oh no, they did something from Hardware called Winning Man.
That's it. Not Hardware. Yeah, I'm sorry. Whatever. I knew it was an older song, but I love that song though. It's a pretty cool tune.
Yeah, no, but that album was definitely a return to form. But I remember that album did nothing. They did a video for Let It Go, which showed a couple times the Headbangers Ball, and that was it. But
speaking of Let It Go, I'm hoping that you bought that recent Def Leppard.
Oh, Mark, let me tell you something. I found I'm a huge fan of On Through the Night and High and Dry. I ordered that when it came out it was $59. It's like $70 everywhere. But I found it for $59 in the UK. It's still not here. I should have paid the $70.
Oh my God, you gotta be kidding me. I must have burned the fucking grooves off those discs already. They sound so great. And I will tell you the one thing I was shocked. I just assumed I'm not a big details guy. I just saw that was coming out, and I just assumed that the Strikes EP was going to be part of it because it's their early years, right?
Yeah.
You just figured that. Well, like Heat in the Street isn't on there, and I fucking love that.
Yeah, no, and I believe War Child's not on there. There's a bunch of stuff not on there,
Yeah, which again, I just assumed I was going to open it up and all that stuff would be there because I'm a geeky fan and I've collected all that stuff and I have it. And I'm like, great, it's going to be in fantastic shape. And I'm like, motherfucker, it's not even on here.
Yeah, that's a shame.
I'm like, why wasn't I consulted? They should have asked me. I'll tell them what they should have put on there. But I will tell you though, because I like "Glad I'm Alive" is one of my
favorite songs. Is "Glad," and also the B-side "Good Morning Freedom" is so good.
Well, hold on, "Glad I'm Alive," Ralph. I don't know if you've heard the version on the box set. There's a version that I didn't have before that has an extra guitar riff, which is even better than the version on the fucking First Strikes EP. Wow.
No, I don't. I have a lot of bootlegs too from Def Leppard. I have a live recording of it, BBC, and I own the First Strikes vinyl actually. But no, and I love that song, so I'm definitely looking forward to hear that version.
Yeah, I actually, matter of fact, I have because I'm an old guy. I still use my iPod, which goes back to, like I said, I'm not a streaming guy or anything. I like to listen to my playlist.
Mm-hmm.
So my playlist from Def Leppard only consists of the EP and the first two records. I just can't listen to anything after fucking High and Dry. It's a different band.
Really? I liked Pyromania for the most part. You didn't like Die Hard to Hunter and what's that song? Coming Under Fire?
I will tell you, I do like rock. I just wish it had, put it this way, I wish that I was allowed to go back and use the same production value on High and Dry for that record. And it would have been incredible. Because look, I'm not going to bullshit it. There's a lot of great songs on there. The songs are fantastic. Too Late for Love is a phenomenal song. I just can't deal with the production. It drives me. The best example of that is Rock Till You Drop. They start ding ding with the fucking keyboard when you come to. Are you kidding me? All I know is get fucking Pete Willis in here, and I want him here now.
Yeah.
Because he wouldn't let that sound like that. You know, I like I said, no Pete, no me.
I mean. And Pete is all over Pyromania. He just didn't play on it. I think he did a little rhythm here and there, but he wrote a lot of those songs.
Yes, correct.
But, yeah, I mean, I will admit, I mean, the two before are way better than Pyromania, but I'm not... I didn't really hate Pyromania. You know, it was, at the time, it was fucking awesome. And seeing that tour, you know, it was with Crocus, by the way. Crocus opened a lot back then. I saw open for Rainbow, for Kiss, Animalize, for Def Leppard. They opened up for a lot of bands back then.
Yeah, they actually got quite a bit of airplay here in Detroit. Screaming in the Night was huge.
Yeah, it was down here too.
Nationwide. But what was the other one they used to
Stay Awake All Night? They played on the radio down here.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, and I know you know this, but maybe not the listeners. I'm down in the Tampa area a lot. My family has a place down there, and they've had it down there since the 80s, so that's like a second home for me. So much so that I even follow all the local, Tampa sports, and, I know the area like the back of my hand. It's a second home, But speaking of which, 98 Rock was always a little ahead of the curve, too, here. I remember the first time that I remember them playing Rainbow a lot down there. I remember when I'd go visit like my grandparents and or not so much my grandparents, just going. The radio in Tampa was really good. I like 98 Rock. Matter of fact, you guys, because when I'd go see my grandparents in Fort Lauderdale, there was a really good rock radio station down there too. I'm talking like 1980, 81. Because I remember going down there, and I remember hearing stuff off of Ted Nugent's Intensities record. I remember they were playing. I remember more than once I heard the Flying Lip Lock.
Yes, it must have been either WSHE or Zeta 4, right?
Yep, I just remember. Yeah, all I remember is that my grandparents lived in a retirement area, and they had like one of those tricycle bikes.
Uh-huh.
And I remember my grandparents are old school Italian, but fucking super cool. And the fact that I was their grandson, I mean, they treated all their grandkids that way. We were their everything, so they made sure they pampered us. And I remember going down there, my grandpa would let me put his little transistor radio, in the basket, and I remember just riding around the neighborhood. I'm 15 years old, but some long-haired kid in shorts, listening to the fucking rock radio, driving around a big tricycle bike down in the retirement community. But it was again, I just remember liking the radio in the Lauderdale area. They played a lot of good stuff, and I'll be honest too, they were playing stuff that they weren't playing in Detroit. And again, just as a music geek, I was always like, that was a big deal. If I went to another city, I wanted to hear what was on the radio. And I have another, a little example of that is, I mentioned hockey earlier. And when I was a kid growing up, one of the things that we used to do was called billeting. And this is such a sign of the fucking times. You'd never do this now. I mean, put it this way, there'd be fucking protests if you did this now. But, dude, this is how I grew up. We did this everywhere. It was called billeting. Like, my parents, we drive to Toronto, which is like 4 hours, 4 hours from Detroit. We drive to Toronto. We get to the rink on a Friday afternoon. If my number was 5, I went home with the number 5 on that team after our game. We'd play Friday evening, Saturday afternoon, and we'd play Sunday afternoon and go home. I'd go back with my folks. No background checks, no nothing. You're number 5, you stay at number 5's house. Just met them that day, that afternoon. no, no signing any papers, no nothing. And I did this for years, like from when I was a little kid up until I was a teenager. But in the winter of 1978, I was billeted at this kid's house, and I was wearing a Kiss T-shirt, and his older brother, who was quite a bit older, he was old enough to go to the bar. He was probably 19. And he was telling me how much Kiss sucks and how great this band called Triumph is. And I'm like, I've never heard of Triumph. He's like, well, I'm going to see him tonight. He goes, you want me to get their record for you? They sell their records at the show. And I'm like, sure. And my dad happened to give me $5, which was a lot of money, back then. At least for me, when I was, I was 13 in 78. I would have been 12 at the time, so this was a winter. So it probably would have been like February of 78.
Was this in Florida?
No, this is in Toronto.
Oh, okay.
So I give this kid's older brother, and sure enough, he comes back with Rock and Roll Machine.
Great album.
I still have it because it was the original Canadian version. And I remember just playing that thing like over and over and over. And then, like later in the year, I remember we had the radio on in art class because the teacher would let us listen to the radio. And the DJ started talking about this new band called Triumph, and they played their song "Lay It on the Line," which is on the next record.
My favorite one.
This was like well, it's funny. Here's the stupid funny story when I talk about just being a geeky fan. So, dude, this is almost embarrassing, but keep in mind, I was 14 in 1979. So I hear "Lay It on the Line" for the first time on the radio the following year, and I'm like, I got a hockey trip coming up to Toronto, because I don't think in my head, I'm like, well, hell, they don't sell Triumph records in America. This is what I'm thinking in my head, because I'm an idiot. So when we go to Toronto to play hockey, I made the family that I was staying with take us to the store so I could buy a Triumph record. Sure enough, they had just the game, and I bought it there. Again, when I heard the song in school, I'm like, I'm going to Toronto in a few weeks for hockey. I'll make sure I get that. And sure enough, I did. So anyways, I've been a Triumph fan for a long time. But see, they let me down too. Everything after Never Surrender, I just couldn't get into.
I agree.
And I think the band would even tell you that too. That they dropped the ball.
There, I will agree with you because I couldn't get into Thunder 7 and whatever came on after that. But to me, man, I mean that. If there's ever an arena band from the 80s that doesn't get the recognition, it's Triumph. Because they were big. But people kind of like forgot about them. And, also the media. I mean, Magic Power was all over the radio and also Fight the Good Fight. And, I like to touch upon that for a second. The song Fight the Good Fight, that's something that's missing in music today. I did a song on my other band called Combat that I wanted to do something positive like Fight the Good Fight, because you remember when we were growing up, we had Fight the Good Fight, we had I'm Me from Twisted Sister. We had these like empowering songs that like, fuck you, you're coming against me, but we're gonna do it. So, I used to smoke cigarettes. So when I quit cigarettes, I wrote a positive song about, you can conquer anything, It's a song called Demons, like locked in my brain. We all have demons, but I have mine locked down, and you don't get music like that anymore. There's no positivity in lyrics anymore. Fight the Good Fight is such a great example of, just, hey man, I'm going to make it and fuck you. I'm the master of my own destiny. So give and take the best that you can. I miss that in music. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I saw that tour. Matter of fact, I think, if memory serves, this was quite a bill. It was Triumph. I want to say it was Mahogany Rush and Pat Travers.
Wow.
I think was on that. Yeah, it was. That was at Cobo Hall. That was a great show.
I saw that tour, and it was Saxon, Denim and Leather tour.
I didn't see Saxon, who I love.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, Martin Pop, going back to my buddy Martin, he just wrote a Saxon book. I I'm waiting for it in the mail. I already sent them my money for it. But see, there's another. I was just going to say, that's another band. The first time I saw them was on the Crusader tour.
Yeah.
And I don't like the record at all. I mean, I like the title tracks pretty good.
There's two songs I like off of.
Yeah, but coming off off of The Power and the Glory, and obviously Denim and Leather is great, but I still think Strong Arm of the Law, there's not a weak song on that entire record. And how did that not get big over here? That album fucking rules, man. I love fucking Strong Arm of the Law.
I didn't get to see them, but they did come here on that tour, open for Rush on Permanent Waves. I wish I could have seen that one.
God, matter of fact, I gotta send my money. I just not doing, because they're putting out that deluxe version of Permanent Waves.
Oh yeah, I'm getting it for sure.
Yeah, I have all the other ones.
Yeah, me too. I just recently, literally like 2 weeks ago, got Hemispheres after all this time it's been out. But I have 2112. I have Farewell to Kings, Hemispheres. Now I got to get that. And I also have. Do you have the 200-gram version of the first Rush album?
No, I have an original. That's one of the things with me. Obviously I'm a huge Kiss geek. I don't buy any of those remasters. I didn't buy the.
Well, it's a box. It's a box set just like the other ones.
Really, I didn't. Hold on. There's a box set. I mean, meaning one of those bigger for the first Rush record.
Well, it doesn't bring anything extra musically, but yeah, it brings a lot of posters and a nice book and pictures. Yeah, and the sound is phenomenal on the. It's not really I don't see a difference, but I just feel the sound is much better. Yeah, there is a box version of the first Rush album.
Wow, I'm surprised that I don't own that. That's totally out of character for me. I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, look into it, man. It's out there, and it's not expensive at all. Because it's not like the other boxes that bring shows and extra vinyls and all this other stuff. But it does bring a lot of extra goodies inside. It's just musically, it's just the first Rush album.
Which is what a record that is.
Oof.
Although it's fun. I love that record. But take obviously the big song off that is Working Man. But even when I listen to the original one, I miss Neil, because I love the way Neil reinterpreted the drum part, like on All the World's a Stage. Because All the World's a Stage is just like Kiss Alive with me. Don't get me wrong, I love the version of Deuce on the first Kiss record, but the version on Kiss Alive is 8 billion times better. And it's the same thing, all the way through on All the World's a Stage. Yes, I love Fly By Night. Yes, I love Anthem. Yeah, it's all great. But all that stuff is 1 billion times better on All the World's a Stage. That album is just pure magic for me. There's not a second of fat on that record. And just the middle of Vitor and the Snow Dog on the live record. I mean, I get tears listening to it. I cannot believe how 3 people can play that well in unison. That, I can't say enough about that. That album's just fucking insane good.
Were you a fan of Exit Stage Left?
Not so much. I go back to my Pee-wee's Big Adventure with that. I like Dottie. I like it. It's just okay. See, also too, that's where I got off. On Moving Pictures was the last record I really liked a lot. Signals was okay. Analog Kid's good. A couple other things in there. But I remember when I first heard New World Man, I'm like, the Police do this stuff way better. Please stop.
Right.
I didn't like that. And it's funny that you mentioned Hemispheres. Hemispheres to me is the best Rush album ever. And on my iPod, I have the Cygnus X1, from Farewell to Kings, queued up right into
Part 2.
That's got to be a good 20 minutes worth of music or so. That I listen to that all the time. That to me is everything that I love about Rush. And I will say, Chris, don't get me wrong, 2112, a 10 out of 10, I love it. But if you had to put me on a desert island and I only had it would be the Cygnus X1 and Book 2 thing, and I love everything about that. It's just so fucking cool. From the storyline on down, and
it's genius.
There's just something about that record, man. Also too, was it side 2 at what?
Farewell.
Circumstances, and then it had the
Trees,
and then
La
Via Strong.
Yeah.
Is that like that side of? Can you really top that side of music for pure musicality anywhere?
It's just unbelievably good. And what's so great about that, Mark? There's actual videos they made for them, and it's not them playing the song like onto the record. It's a music video, but they're playing it live.
Yeah.
And that's what that Hemispheres box set brings those videos. And I remember seeing those videos for the first time back in when it was first released, because HBO, between movies, they would show those videos, which was wild.
Well, did you? Matter of fact, one of them, because I don't know if you know this about me, I'm a huge bootleg collector for Kiss. That's really where I got, because obviously, I'm friends with the band and all that stuff. That's where a lot of that came from, because I was a really geeky collector, and I love trying to find master tapes and finding unreleased stuff and stuff like that. So, but what really started that is we didn't have, you guys in Miami had HBO before we did.
Yeah. And cable. Yeah, I had cable very early on.
Yeah, we didn't get cable here till 1981. And the Kiss show on HBO debuted in 79, I think. And
I would watch it over and over and over again. They would play it a lot.
Here's the funny thing. I didn't know what a bootleg was in 1979. I was 14. I didn't know what that really even was. My good friend Mike, his aunt lived, I think, in Miami. And she put her cassette player up to the TV and recorded it that way. So no video, just a cassette.
Right.
And I remember in the back of the bus, he had a little player, and we listened to that on the way to school, and I was just like, I couldn't comprehend how cool that was. And I remember when we got off the bus, we literally didn't leave the bus stop. We got off the bus, we sat there and listened to the rest of it together. And I didn't go home. I was mesmerized with it. And I didn't know how to make a copy at the time because I was a kid. And I remember him letting me borrow the tape, and I must have played that thing 1,000 fucking times. So that was my first taste into bootlegs, and it stuck with me to this day. I'm like, that plus that show in that era. That's the rock and roll tour. That was really them at their zenith, both in musicality and meaning for the original band.
How did you feel living with that audio bootleg of Budokan for all those years to finally see it?
Are you kidding?
I can imagine.
I finally saw that in probably 86 on a Betamax.
Wow.
It was probably mid-80s was the first time I saw it. And a friend of mine, that was really when I started, because, I just worked in construction and all that stuff. That's what I've been doing my entire life. We worked late hours. I used to go to record shows and stuff, and that's when I remember first seeing bootleg videotapes. But I didn't have a video player. You know what I mean? I don't think I bought a VHS till probably 1988. I was probably a little out of a little late to the game. But after that, then probably from 88 on, I was collecting bootlegs, video-wise. Crazy, because I was already collecting cassettes. I started that's what set me off though, was hearing the Japan '77 show in 1979. I think that was. I think that came out in the summer, maybe. It couldn't have been. When did that debut on HBO?
It had to be around '79 because I vividly remember my cousins from New York coming down and having to suffer me watching it constantly because they played it a lot. And he's like, "Oh, you're watching this again?"
I just know of it because again, it was a cassette of it, and I put it this way: it was I think it was definitely blue, and I think it was a Kmart, bottom of the line, fucking whatever 60-minute tape.
So it was an official release. I thought it was some guy burned it on a Betamax tape.
No. As I said, it's a cassette. It's audio. I didn't see the video until the mid '80s.
Yeah, but that Betamax, was that an official release or was that like somebody just?
No. That was matter of fact, the first Betamax that I saw of it in the mid '80s. I think I'm going off of memory only. So anybody in the audience who goes, "It didn't go out in that far," I think it was the Young Music Show from Japan. I think it was a dubbed down version of the Young Music Show.
Oh, okay.
But technically it's the same thing,
right?
In many ways. But yeah, so that was it. But I eventually then did see the actual HBO broadcast. But I think the Young Music Show was the first version that I saw of that. First version I heard was the HBO version.
Wow. Yeah, I remember, because back then I didn't have a VCR. So, I didn't have a VCR till much later. I remember going to the movies to see Let There Be Rock, and I sat there for 3 showings, because I was not supposed to be there. I would hide, just to see it. I spent all Saturday watching Let There Be Rock in the theater, because that was the only way I can see AC/DC back then. I didn't have.
That's funny.
Huh?
Another rock and roll thing is that I remember being really disappointed the first time that I saw what's the Zeppelin one?
Song Remains the Same.
Yeah, that even to this day, don't get me wrong, I like the audio, but I always thought that was kind of dopey.
And I know this ain't a popular opinion, but I don't really think. To me, the highlight of that is No Quarter. It's unbelievable, and the bonus stuff they put out later, like the Misty Mountain Hop and the Ocean. I don't know why they didn't add it. Celebration. Yeah, I don't know why they didn't add that to the original. But anyway, I thought they were kind of sloppy on that show. If you listen to How the West Was Won and like those,
way better.
I recently got the first box set. Great.
Yeah, the BBC. I know. Look, man. How in the hell is We're Gonna Groove? How is We're Gonna Groove not on the first record?
Unbelievable.
That's one of the,
so rauncous.
Why do people dog on Coda? Coda fucking rules.
Oh, I disagree there, Mark.
I know, because you're sane. Who the fuck is Wearing and Tearing is fucking incredible.
I love Wearing and Tearing. We're Gonna Groove. That's it. That's it.
You don't need anything else. Because the
songs
are so incredible.
No,
it doesn't even matter what's on the rest of the record, because those 2 songs are like worth the fucking price.
Yeah, they are the highlights. I've always liked those 2 songs. Those 2 songs are just so heavy and raunchous and kind of sporadic too, And
but I just as a drummer, the Bonzo's Mantra thing I liked just because it's I don't know, it's also so weird. I like some weird stuff. That's kind of a weird listen. Speaking of weird, that was another thing. I one of my favorite records, and it doesn't get talked about. I love Apostrophe from Frank Zappa. That was one I grew up on, man.
I have that. I have that on CD. I think it's an Overnight Sensation.
Yes, correct. They're both on the same. I have that same CD copy.
Oh, I love it.
All that stuff's fantastic. So just yesterday I was talking about Joe's Garage to a buddy of mine where, just talking about that, right? There's a guy that doesn't get enough accolades for his music. Maybe he did years ago, but I don't hear many people talking about Frank anymore. And that guy can just out and out play. Well, obviously he could. He's deceased, but what an incredible
Very
great
underrated
tone.
guitar player, actually.
Yes, yeah.
I
great
love
tone.
Frank Zappa. There's some albums that's a little too out there for me, but the ones I love, Chic Your Booty, Joe's Garage, Overnight Sensation, Freak Out. I love those albums. Apostrophe.
Yeah, both. Yeah, that is just the fucking shit, boy. Love that stuff. Look at this. We're almost 2 hours.
Doesn't seem that way, does it?
It never does. But
You have something planned for tonight?
yeah, I'm gonna go fucking go have some ice cream.
Well,
Next, I gotta.
this was awesome, Mark. I had a feeling it was going to go this way. You
Well,
know?
put it this way: I knew it was going to be fun, and we need to do this more often. So, yeah, I would. Shit, we barely scratched the surface, and we've been motor mouthing for almost 2 hours.
Yeah, I mean, maybe next time we're going to write down a list of bands we should really, let the people know that aren't really, like, we scratched the surface of Triumphs, The Sweet, but there's so much more out there, that,
We didn't even talk about UFO.
UFO, my God, Strangers in the Night,
We didn't talk. Well, we barely touched on it. We didn't talk about fucking one of the greatest albums ever made and Accepts Restless and Wild.
Oh.
We didn't even talk about that.
Yep,
We
game
didn't talk
changer.
about the greatest heavy metal ballad of all time as being Princess of the Night. And I say the word ballad in the true sense of what that word means. The greatest heavy metal ballad is Princess of the Dawn.
Yeah.
That everything about that song to me is perfect. If I had to pick a perfect song, Princess of the Dawn to me is, from the lyrics to that really cool German, whatever the fuck instrument they're playing in the.
Yeah.
It sounds like they recorded it in a beer hall, and I'm like, this just rules beyond all ruledom. I fucking just love that. And obviously, I remember the first time that I heard, Fast as a Shark. I'm like, this is, because nothing sounded like that at the time.
No, it was the fastest song ever back then.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, that just everything about that, and then going back and because I remember that was the first I ever heard of them, and then I went back and I got Breaker, and just all that stuff. And I don't know if you ever got into that Dutch band called Picture. I liked I liked them. Diamond Dreamer was the probably my favorite record of theirs. And
Never heard of them. There's a recent band I'm into called Picture, though, actually. You wouldn't like them. They sound like King Diamond.
Well, look at the time. It's a great time.
Ice cream time. and we gotta talk, and something we also didn't talk about that we will do in the next episode, Double Live Gonzo.
I could do just an entire 2 hours.
Foghat Live.
Oh, same thing. Matter. Well, wait do you see my band's album cover? We did a tip of the cap to Foghat on the cover of our new record. And that was one thing too. You were saying you wrote the lead off track on our new record is called Bulletproof, and I kind of the chorus I kind of put in a little bit of of a positive sort of thing on that with it.
Nice.
I kind of put a little spin on something that we were talking about earlier, that at this point I play music because I love it, and again, like I said way earlier in the conversation, when I was a kid, if you had asked me, I just would have said it was about picking up girls and stuff, and that was the motivation. But I've been married for 29 years, and I'm still doing this. So it's way more than that, man. And again, that goes back to not only music and songwriting and playing the drums, but also playing hockey and collecting Kiss and all the stuff that you love to do, you can still do. You never have to stop doing it. The only one who determines that is you.
Yep.
And that's one of the great things about doing these podcasts. I get to meet cool people like you, and sit and talk about music for 2 hours, and it seems like 10 minutes.
It does. It does. We're an hour and 40 minutes into this. One last question before you leave, though. Did you have a lot of friends that gave up on music? Because I did. Lost the passion.
Put it this way: the people that I hung out with and talked to that were music geeks back then, for the most part, still are. Most of my friends. I mean, put it this way: you and I are on a totally different level. Look, it's like disease with us. Meaning, if I can't talk rock or listen to music, I'll go crazy. I don't know what life would be like without. I wouldn't even think about it. Everything. Because it's funny. Ralph. It's not a shtick with either one of us. I'm wearing a concert shirt every day. I'm 50. I'm going to be 55.
Yeah,
but
same here.
I don't do it to make it a statement other than what this is part of who I am.
It's a lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly. And it's there's nothing poser about it. It's like this is who I am. This means a lot to me. I don't know if you ever saw that on Three Sides. They joke about the rotation, but there's no bullshit in that. My fucking closet is nothing but black T-shirts, and it's like, that's the great part when I go somewhere. I grab if I'm going to be gone for a week, I grab the first 7, throw them in the fucking suitcase. I don't care. Whatever I wear, I'm wearing.
Yeah,
I'm going to be well represented, and this just means a lot to me. So to go back to your question, I have very few friends who are as into it as I am, but most of my friends who still, they still dig it. But I was the one that they always went to for the geeky part of it, I guess. And it's a role that I'm proud to play, and it certainly sounds like you're the same way.
Oh yeah, big time. What other would call useless knowledge, I think is very useful.
Well, I'm gonna and look, I get this every now and then, but I got to tell you, who is a brethren of ours this way is Mr. Eric Singer. We talk music all the time, and it's funny. I was messing with him because let me tell you, that guy knows his stuff. Eric knows music. Put it this way: the way some people think about people like you and I are the way that I think about him. And I said something to him about that once. I said, you know what? People think I know a lot about this stuff. Dude, you're fucking insane. And he said to me, he goes, I do know a lot about it. You know who's even more so than me is Paul Stanley.
Wow.
He said Paul can tell you every section player of every fucking Motown sax record, Stax record. He said he can tell you everything about it. Who produced it, who engineered it, that's fun for me. I love learning stuff, and again, people like us gravitate to that sort of thing.
It's intriguing.
It really is, and I love having these sorts of conversations, especially with people who get it. And I'd like to think that the people who listen to your show, and I certainly know the people who listen to Three Sides, they get it, they understand,
right?
That's what makes this stuff so fun to do.
Yep, and it's one thing I learned wild about you, listening to that Ted Nugent episode was that you have Clive Davis's drum set. That's amazing.
Well, Cliff Davis. Clive Davis.
I'm sorry, Cliff. Yeah, Cliff.
Yes. Matter of fact, speaking of my new record, my band's new record, that's the drum. Matter of fact, the same exact kit that Ted recorded Wango Tango and Scream Dream is. And matter of fact, if you go look at the Monsters of Rock and what you hear on Scream Room, that is the same exact kit that I'm playing on our new record. So
that's amazing. I wonder if he played it when I saw the Scream Dream tour. Pat Travers and Scorpions opened that.
Yeah, all the pictures that we've seen. This is kind of a cool story. Like I said, I've been playing drums for a long time, and Eric Singer's the one who helped me get the set. Let me go back a little bit. A couple of years ago, the guy who's playing drums for Ted Nugent now, Jason Hartless, great drummer. And
amazing
Yeah.
Amazing lineup. The bass player is awesome too.
Yeah, the entire thing is amazing. And anyways, well, I knew Jason's dad back in the club days. Jason's dad's the same age as I am, and he played in bands the same time I was playing around in Detroit. Well, his son, Jason Jr., plays for Ted now, and he's just, this guy is just phenomenal. A super talented. But anyways, the guy, because, Cliff is since passed, the guy who had the drum set got a hold of Jason to see if he wanted to buy it. And Jason said, it's interesting and cool and everything, but, he's got a bunch of kids, and, wherever he was living at the time, he couldn't, I think something like that, just didn't have room for it. I don't know what exactly. All I know is he passed on it, but then he got a hold of Eric Singer, because he's friends with Eric as well. And Eric said, I have a friend, meaning me, he's like, I have a friend of mine who'd really go crazy over that if given the chance. So Eric got a hold of me, and then, he gave me this guy's information, and he was, I guess, a friend of Cliff Davies, growing up, and he got the kit right from Cliff. And Cliff hand-signed the inside of all the shells.
Wow.
He wrote Scream Dream Tour. Now, so here's where it gets even cooler. I grew up a couple doors down. The woman, well, she's my friend, but she married into the Nugent family. Her husband is Ted's wife's brother.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So, anyways, I had these pictures of the drums, and I wanted to make sure that the signature, that Ted would be able to verify it.
Mm-hmm.
So I sent the pictures over, and he said, "Hell, I don't even have to see the signatures. I played around the world with those drums. Those are the drums. Those are the exact ones. I can tell you that just looking at them." And he verified everything through the pictures that I sent, my friend. So that was a great thing. And then, like as you heard on the show, Jason did sound check or brought my snare sound check, and then Ted signed the inside of it. So, just pretty cool, and pretty cool story, and I just love being able to share that sort of stuff with people, because I'd love that story if I heard it and I was on the other side of the fence. You know what I mean?
No, I love that story. When I heard it on the show, I was like, oh, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Rest in peace. He was a great drummer.
Oh, he really was. And I tell you what, and I said this on the Nugent episode, if anybody here's listening is a Ted fan and kind of goes right back into Martin Popoff's book, I helped Martin with a book called Epic. And if you're a fan of Ted Nugent's music, it's all about his music. That book's phenomenal because there's interviews with, matter of fact, Martin did the very last interview with Cliff Davies that he did before he passed.
Wow.
And there's interviews with Derek St. Holmes and Charlie Hume and everybody that was in the Nugent band, and even like the guys who were in like Amboy Dukes. So it's and I helped Martin out with the book. That once again, one of the reasons I got involved in the KISS organization is I have quite the archive of KISS press clippings and newspaper articles. Well, I have the same thing with Ted. I always collected stuff whenever Ted was in the newspaper, which was a lot. And I shared all that with Martin, and that book is phenomenal. And as you heard people who were there that played on them. So, another plug for Martin's book, but it really is that good. I wouldn't be feeling it if I didn't think so, So
that's very awesome, man. Well, Mark, I hear your ice cream melting.
I know. I got to look. I'm getting thinner by the second up here. We didn't even talk about Motley Crue. We didn't even fucking mention it.
Yeah, the L.A. explosion, Wasp.
We didn't talk about Cheap Trick. We didn't talk about the Stones.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much we didn't even fucking talk about yet.
Wasp.
Oh my God! I'll save that for next time. I didn't share that before on the resides, but I've got an incredible Wasp story.
I do too. I have a Wasp story where Blackie wanted to kick my ass, but I'll say that for.
Blackie wanted to kiss mine. That was and I mean that in the nicest of ways.
Wow.
That was. Let's just say, put it this way, and I'll leave you with this. I had something that Blackie wanted. Blackie wanted to know how much I wanted for it. I told him he could have it, and he didn't believe me. I'm like, no, you can have it. And he's like, you're kidding. And I'm like, no, it's yours.
Wow.
And he did something very nice for me. And I'll share that next time we get together.
Yeah, tune in and see what Mark gave Blackie. And and also tune in to hear why he wanted to kick my ass.
There you go. Well, Ralph, been a pleasure, man. You're a great guy.
Thank you, man. So are you.
And I will, good luck, stay safe, and all the best to you, my friend. God bless you. Right.
Thank you so much, Mark. There you go, Mark Cicchini. We didn't really talk too much about his band, Left 4 Dead, who just released something. You can pre-order it now. And speaking of his band and his new music, let's go in the vault. All right, we're in the vault. And I'm going to play something off Left 4 Dead's new album, featuring Mark Cicchini on drums. And he does some vocals, too. It was hard picking a song, to tell you the truth. There's several songs I wish I could have played. But fuck it. I picked the first track off it. It's awesome. The way to describe this band, it's like blue-collar rock and roll, but they get metallic at times, and this is a good example of when they get metallic. This is track 1 off the new Left 4 Dead album. Turn this up. It's called Bulletproof. Bulletproof, Left 4 Dead. Look at the description below. You can pre-order it if you like what you hear. I pre-ordered it. And, hey, thanks for listening at the end of another Vieira Vault, especially if you're listening to me now. I have another episode next week. I got another episode for the next few weeks. And I'm working on new ones, so I'm not stopping, man. Every Sunday you're going to get a new Vieira Vault. Lucky you. You rule. Thank you so much, everybody. Till next time, schmack 'em a gob.